Hey, sports fans. Whenever I'm watching a movie about the Army or the Navy or whatever, I try to guess if the end credits are going to thank the Army or the Navy or whatever. Does it feel more like a recruiting ad or a decruiting ad? Now, usually, I'm a lot more interested in the second category, but you'd be surprised which movies the Pentagon has given the official okie dokie, including From Here to Eternity, although that one I think there was a lot of back and forth, and including The Great Santini, which, among other things, lays bare the toxic culture of the Navy, the culture that tailhook attendees would come to know and love. So why do the end credits thank the Marines for their technical assistance? Well, that is hard to say. Perhaps it was damaged limitation. Maybe this was the strategy. On the other hand, this is a complicated movie that isn't universally negative. Well, we'll talk about this. The Great Santini is an extreme movie, but it is one with a lot of facets. I'm not sure exactly what modern audiences will think of it, and I don't know how it would have felt in 1979. Maybe the Marines saw something here that they actually liked, or at least something that they could put up with. Of course, this is not just a movie about marine biology. Maybe its biggest theme is fatherhood or sundom. A movie about bravado, about personality, about dealing with people, accommodating them. Suffice to say, there is a lot to talk about with the Great Santini, and that's what we're about to do. Now, to start with, I think this is a great movie. It is powerful, moving, extreme. You'll probably say, whoa, dude, a couple of times while watching it. I was not expecting that. One of the things the Great Santini is best known for is the performance by Robert Duvall as Bull Meacham, the Great Santini, a Marine fighter pilot. This is definitely a high point of the movie. Now, Duvall does spend 90% of the movie doing the De Niro grimace, something like that. And I guess this counts as acting. It's interesting, actually, that this is a movie fixating on a certain moment in American masculinity that is defined, to some extent, by the grimace. We'll talk more about this later. Blythe Danner is also in the movie playing the wife of Santini. Now, do you know, this is a good piece of trivia here. Do you know what Blythe Danner and Robert Duvall have in common? Well, they're both in The Great Santini, but they also were both in MASH. Duvall was in the movie, of course, and Blythe Danner was in one episode of the television show playing Hawkeye's one true love. Carly Breslin, I think is her name. Anyway, if you think that Blythe is an odd name, you'll never believe what she named her daughter, or what her daughter named her daughter. That's Gwyneth and Apple. I'm all for a strange name, personally. I think it's great. Anyway, Danner does a southern accent in this movie. It doesn't quite ring true for me, but of course I've never been to the South unless you count San Diego. Duvall is the only powerhouse performance in this movie, I would say. Danner is okay. There are some weak moments, but her character is also at times really well written. I mean, she has some moving things to say, and that kind of makes up for some of the other parts, I guess. A huge liability in this movie, a disaster waiting to happen, is the fact that this couple has 4 kids. We have 4 child actors in the movie. Well, more than that, actually. One of the characters is 18. This is Ben Meacham, who's kind of the center of the movie in some way. He's played by Michael O'Keefe, who was 24 at the time. Looks young enough. The performance is okay. I don't know what else he acted in later, but it's fine. The other children aren't in the movie much. 2 of them I forgot about almost entirely. The smaller characters, besides the family, are pretty solid, but a little tropey. And in general, the movie is a little tropey. We'll get back to that maybe. The music is by Elmer Bernstein. I think this is one of the worst parts of the movie. The score is horrible in my opinion, but oh well. The cinematography is okay. There are some interesting scenes up in the air, pretty good dogfight footage. This movie is set in 1962 when there was no war to fight. The most interesting thing about this film stylistically, I think, is probably that it's not quite the understated 1970s drama that I was expecting. We've covered a ton of these on this channel. We talked about one last week. The Great Santini doesn't really feel like that. In some ways, it feels older. It feels like a 1960s social drama, a serious black and white social drama of the 1960s, perhaps produced by Stanley Kramer, maybe directed by Stanley Kramer. At the same time, it also sort of feels like a Steven Spielberg movie from 1995 or something. There is something a little too saccharine and a little too tropey about it for me, but the movie survived this, mainly because it has some really vivid characters and some powerful scenes. And it gives you a lot to chew on. This is not a subtle movie exactly, but it is a nuanced movie. Let's talk about some of those nuances. The Great Santini has an extremely strong beginning. One of the greatest opening, like, scenes you'll find anywhere. The credits play out over some training dogfight thing. That's not too crazy. But then we see these Marine pilots at a bar in Spain, representing America. Of course, they're drunk. And we see a pretty outrageous stunt, a pretty outrageous prank that they carry out. I won't say exactly what it is. You can see for yourself. This is the first time that you're going to say, whoa, dude. Bull Meacham is kind of the head of this fraternity that lavishes in the low. This gleeful lack of respectability and principles that might seem, I don't know, that might seem like the opposite of what the Marines stand for, or maybe it's the opposite of that. Anyway, outrageous stunt, big party on his last night in Europe, and then cut to Blythe Danner on a runway with her kids waiting for the transport plane with the Great Santini aboard. What a setup. How is this Marine hooligan going to be as a family man and a father? In some ways, we spend the rest of the movie answering this question. And it really does take every minute that Duvall is on screen to get to the core of this guy. I think this is truly one of the greatest film characters ever. Did Patton do the military great man thing first? Yes. But I think this is more interesting and better balanced in some ways. This is a character that you can completely get. You instantly know him, but you also are continuously surprised by him. There are a lot of layers, and I won't go through them all now, but maybe what struck me most about this character is what seems to be this central contradiction, where he is very serious, totally committed to protocol and to doing things a certain way, ready to die for the cause, but he is also totally unserious. He's constantly teasing and poking. He gets drunk all the time. He is childlike in many ways. How could those things possibly coexist? Well, I think it's actually pretty common. Most adults were once children, and many still are. I don't know. Is it more common? Is this kind of thing more common in certain corners of societies, in fraternities, in the military? This movie is based on a book by Pat Conroy, and The Great Santini was based on his father, Donald Conroy. It's probably not possible to create a character that is so vivid and just fleshed out of thin air. And it makes a lot of sense that he grew up in this kind of regime and witnessed it firsthand. Apparently, Donald Conroy would come to some of his son's book signings and give out his autograph as well, introducing himself as the Great Santini. We'll talk about self-awareness or lack thereof in a moment. Before we get to that, I should mention a few other facets of the movie. There is this character study at the heart of everything, yes, but there are also a lot of other pieces to the Great Santini. Maybe one too many pieces, in fact. We don't quite get to the end of any of the subplots, and even Bull's story kind of drifts out of focus in a way. He goes back to the United States to train up some squadron, to whip them into shape, and the movie sets up some juicy workplace drama, some tension between him and some of the other officers, some skepticism from the students. You kind of want to see where this goes, but you don't really. We hop to the story of his son, who's turning 18 and is more of a tender soul. Well, not entirely, but is he going to follow in his dad's footsteps? His dad gets him, passes down his old aviator jacket or whatever, and he's kind of repulsed by it or something. His son's on the basketball team, and there's this subplot there. He wants to get with one of the cheerleaders, it would seem. There's also the story of the outcast son of the family maid. This is sort of a Southerner Jim Crow story. And yeah, one thing I do like about all these plot lines is that you get a real sense of the kind of things that people have on their minds, the kinds of things that people carry with them when they go into work or when they go into school, all of the baggage from their personal life, from their family life, everything going on. Most of these subplots work. I don't know, maybe the movie's not quite long enough. And could have gone in a little bit more with some of them, or we could have gotten rid of one. I don't know. Anyway, the ending of the movie, is it a little bit lazy? Maybe. I think the film does a good job capturing a particular moment, I will say. There are some great little details, like when we go to the high school basketball game and have to listen to a lousy student band. In the credits, they thank a high school band. So they kind of did these guys dirty, asking them to be in the movie so that they could make fun of it. Personally, I'm all for it. The basketball itself is not realistic at all. It looks like the basketball you would see in a like Geico commercial or something. But the movie does capture the time pretty well, I think, and there's something about the vibe of the gym that feels kind of right, I guess. Like I said, though, a little tropey, and it does feel at times a little bit more like a movie about the South than the South, or something like that. let's talk about some of the bigger ideas in the movie. One of the first things that struck me is the old question of personality. What is personality? Do you have a little guy inside your head telling you how to act at any given moment? Probably not. You could probably do anything you want to at any time, but you're not going to. You won't. Why is that? Well, it's this strange illusion of personality, something enforced by other people, by our own minds, something shaped by our past, but through what mechanism? Who knows? This movie, it stirs the pot here a little bit. It gives us an example of someone who can really only be himself, who's stuck in a way. Now, these days, most people are probably not going to be very sympathetic towards Bull. I'm not even sure if people would have been sympathetic in the 70s. I don't know exactly how they would have felt, but the character was probably a lot more familiar. Anyway, the movie, in a way, is kind of even-handed, sort of. I mean, like, there's an interesting scene where Ben beats Bull at basketball, and Bull takes it bad, pretty hard. And yeah, that night Ben is watching out his window as his dad is down in the backyard practicing. And he's upset about this because his father did him wrong. His mother comes in and says, well, that is his way of apologizing. And you think, man, what kind of cognitive dissonance does it take to be married to this guy? This is horrible. You should get out of there. But also, it kind of seems like she's right in a way. I mean, it's a powerful scene. Like I said, Blythe Danner has some great lines in this movie. Despite it not being an amazing performance, there's some powerful stuff there. There's a question wrapped up in all of this, which is like, how much work should you do to accommodate other people? You might think that being the bigger person sounds fun, sounds glamorous, right? But actually, it sucks. It's unfair. Why is it that the nice person, the bigger person, has to accommodate the mean person, right? Shouldn't it be the other way around? We're talking about personality here, and one really interesting facet of this, and facet of this movie, is self-awareness. Believe it or not, Bull is self-aware, sort of. At moments, it seems like. Some people introduce this movie with a quote about how hard it is to be a war hero when there's no war. That's like maybe one of the taglines of the movie. Well, it's Bull who says that, and it's not easy for him to spit it out, but on some level, he knows the score. Don't we all? I don't know. So he's sort of explicitly self-aware, just for a glimmer of it, but also maybe some of his jokes have a hint of that too. I don't know, this is up for debate, but comedy, subversion of expectations, can seem like self-awareness, at least. Maybe it is self-awareness at times. The humor aspect of this film is really interesting, because Bull is largely a tyrant of his family, right? And yet, he does a lot of teasing, right? So you're kind of scared of this guy. You kind of don't know what he's going to do next. He's kind of really strict and mean and harsh and brutal, but he's also joking around a bunch. And some of it is mean-spirited, but some of it is just sort of odd and whimsical. Like he's just messing around. He's kind of a troll or something. I mean, it's odd. And then his family teases him back. So you think, oh, this is some sort of dictatorial rule inside this family. But they talk back to him plenty. And that's a very interesting relationship. I mean, it's one of the great slices of nuance in the entire film, I think, is the role of humor in it. That adds such a rich dimension to the film. Anyway, there is also some implication about personality here. When you're teasing somebody, you're picking up on who they are to some extent. Maybe. Anyway, one of the most relevant words for this movie, I think, I said it before, it's bravado. And actually, the film made me rethink what that means a little bit. Well, it helped me pick up on some part of bravado, I guess. Bravado is kind of nuanced. Shout out to the album, Bravado, by Kieran J. Callan, a true artist. Anyway, there's something unserious about bravado. That's what I'm trying to get at. Bravado is put on. It's a bit of an act. It's a bit of a tease. You get that in this movie a little bit because, yeah, there's something about this like deeply serious nature, but then also totally unserious nature, and this like hint of self-awareness. All of this, it kind of, yeah. Anyway, who knew that men could be so complicated? I have more to say about this movie, but I'm actually kind of running out of time to record the video, so I'll leave it here. The Great Santini, cool movie. It is not the understated 1970s social drama that I had expected, and it's not perfect. It's a little tropey at times, but it is powerful, and there is a lot of food for thought here. Also, at the heart of it is an incredible character. I mean, truly one of the greatest characters in film. Absolutely worth checking out. I'll see you next week, sports fans.